Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone is safe and healthy and coping well in these unprecedented times. Insurance is one of the worst hit sector post COVID-19 outbreak and one of the sectors that has been pushed to adopt to new technologies to overcome these challenges. Today's webinar is another step towards understanding the power of technology to ease these challenges. The title of the webinar is Transforming the Insurance Landscape Using Newgen Low-Code Platform. I am Ruchika Srivastav and shall be your host and the coordinator for this webinar today. Our speakers today are Mr. Sushil Zaregaonkar, Director Financial Services Advisory, Ernst Young, and Mr. Shantanu Tewari, Head of Center of Excellence, Insurance, Newgen Software. They are the industry leaders and have been instrumental in digitally transforming processes for across the world in the insurance sector. At the end of these presentations, we will have the questions and answer session. We request you to type your questions in the GoToWebinar question window anytime during the webinar, and I shall take them up at the end of the session with our experts. Now it's over to you, Sushil.
Thank you very much, Ruchika. I hope I'm clearly audible. Welcome everybody to this webinar. A very good morning to all of you. I hope everybody is keeping safe. I think these are unprecedented times, and everybody is going through some sort of a challenge or the other. But we do hope that things do improve very quickly and life comes back to normal. But in the meantime, we've seen the industries also taking a huge impact, and it's not just one singular industry; it's across. We've seen that the current crisis has resulted in a major global slowdown, something that was never anticipated or is unprecedented. There has also been, economic decline. The economic activities themselves have gone down substantially because of, the lockdown effect. The manufacturing has taken a hit. People are losing their jobs on a daily basis, and I think it. We do hope that it is only a temporary shutdown, but there will be a case that some businesses might just never recover from this. The consumers also are getting impacted. The consumption is not the same. People are only buying what is necessary for them, and there's going to be a shift in the demand. People will only focus on their immediate and absolute essential needs for some time to come. The spending patterns will be very, very different. Many people will also move towards digital buying, and we've already seen some trends around that in the last month and a half. People don't want to venture out, go to shops, or go to offices wherever it is possible to transact digitally, and that's going to be a major shift in the way businesses are conducted. But along with that, we'll also see a lot of surge in digital or cybercrime. We've already seen some sort of examples where people have been indulging into fraudulent activities in terms of the monetary transactions. So this is something that's going to see a major spike in the coming days, till the time that the customers or the consumers become aware of the pitfalls. So some of the challenges that the organizations are facing because of the current crisis is: how do you acquire new customers? The customers don't come to you. You can't go to the customer, especially in the areas where there's a lockdown or there are red zones. Getting on new customers is going to be very, very difficult. Most of our insurance processes are still paper driven, especially complex products need explanations. They need signatures, wet signatures. They need a physical interaction before the customer actually buys it, and that's not going to be possible with the containment and the social distancing that we see, and it's going to be here for some time to stay. There's a lot of dependency on interpersonal interactions, and if you think of it, there's a lot that's going to now ride on how your agents or how your employees interact with the customers. How do they give them comfort, and how do they actually ensure that the customers' demands or needs are met, and they're able to strike that chord. It's not going to be pure transactional selling anymore. The other challenges are around operations. Most of the offices in the red zone are completely shut. That means your workforce is not going to be available for you. Many of the tasks that need the workforce to be physically present in the office can't be executed anymore, which is going to add to your cost, and it's going to slow down your operations. The old traditional systems are never designed with the mobility thought process. For example, in India, most of the life insurance companies had done their setup more than 10 years ago. And while some of them have adopted mobility very actively, there are the other ones who have fallen behind the curve on a lot of operational related tasks, and that sort of adds a lot of pressure on ensuring how do you stay afloat in such challenging times. The process and technology overall also has been impacted because many of these organizations were never ready for such crisis. When you talk about having a partial or a remote working environment, these were models that were never adopted or tried or tested in the earlier times. But now, when the current crisis sort of set in, people had to immediately change the way of working, and there was no time. And the process and the technology was just not ready to cater to that, and that still continues. While many of them have overcome in the past month and a half, but there are still organizations who are reeling with these issues. There are a lot of challenges also. Even if you do find a way to improve the process or fix a technology gap, there's still challenges because of the legacy systems. Integrating or adding a new functionality or a feature on top of a legacy system becomes extremely difficult. It's not easy to integrate. It's not quick. You can't turn around and provide the experience to your employees or your customers that very easily when you're dealing with legacy systems. Uh, there's a lot of lack of automation also. While, as I said, there are a lot of adoption done by insurance companies from the front facing interactions, most of the back-end processes are still very manually driven, especially claims related or traditional operational processes. They're far more manual, and that's also impacting both the operational efficiency and the cost now. If you talk about regulatory compliance, again, another area which was very paper heavy, insistence on physical signatures, insistence on the agents meeting the customers, needing physical documentation for verification. All of these have added a burden on the operational processes. You can't really sell or service your customer digitally because of these areas and restrictions. And because of these restrictions, the companies have also not been able to really adopt digital, and this is a major challenge now because of the COVID-19 crisis. As I had alluded to this, cybersecurity is going to be another major challenge for most of the CISOs or the IT heads, because as you move or make a shift to digital channels or digital systems and adoptions, you're going to have to ensure that your consumers are protected, and your own organizations and processes are protected from cybercrime. It puts a heavy emphasis on the digital, the IT, and the CISO to work together now to ensure that you have a safe operating environment as far as the technology landscape is concerned. All of these challenges, if you see, are actually now giving a digital push. So uh, the 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 uh, the fundamental pillars of your organization will all start to look towards how digital adoption will happen over the course of the next 6 to 8 months. And obviously, it's not just about now. It's going to be the next and the beyond as well, because you're obviously going to do things that will help you fix your situation currently with a quick fix, but then you want to have agendas for your next sort of time frame where you want to build on the digital adoption that you start now, and then it's going to be beyond where you actually grow and thrive in the market, because there will be some consolidation that we expect to happen over the course of 6 to 8 months. So let me talk about what we've seen and what we've observed insurance companies doing currently to sustain in this crisis. We've seen a lot of insurance companies adopt the remote working environment. People have been working back to ensure that uh, they give their employees or train their employees to adopt the digital channel, and how do they basically help them settle in the work from home environment. Uh, Insurance companies have also been promoting the self-service channels quite a bit. The basic FAQs are a passe. They're basically bringing in artificial intelligence backed chatbots to do all the basic customer servicing on the digital channel itself, because your call centers are not staffed adequately now, and that puts an emphasis on promoting self-service channels, and it will also reduce your operational cost in the long run. Most of the essential services which are required for functioning but are not possible now, they've been adopting low-code digital platforms to be plugged on top of the legacy system to help enable those essential services very quickly, and help customers and employees get on board there. And a lot of the ecosystem is also supporting in that. Most of the IT vendors or most of the solution providers are now coming up with these solutions that can fit easily on top of a legacy platform and at least help you get started with your essential services. The customer engagement is also a very important aspect, and we've seen insurance companies in the last 1 month, and they continue to do so, put an emphasis on communication, being in touch with your customers, being close to them, informing them about the trends or the updates or any changes to their products and services is a key to keep the customer going with you beyond the crisis. If you lose your customers now, you may not be able to get them back anytime soon. So this is what companies are essentially doing in terms of sustenance. Uh, the next part beyond sustenance is adapting, because the COVID-19 crisis has really pushed companies to adopt digital. I mean, even the companies who were on their path have now expedited that journey, and we believe that this new digital adoption is going to be normal, and it's here to stay. So you have to start thinking about what will you do beyond your sustenance to ensure that the digital adoption or the journeys that you've started on right now as part of the expediting process stay on and bear the fruits. Some of the areas which we feel will be important will be around automation, and having quick wins around how do you do digital customer onboarding, because as I said, customers are not going to be coming into your branches or your offices, or it's not going to be possible for your agents to go and meet them. A lot of emphasis again on online training and information, both to your uh, internal staff and your agencies, because there will be a lot of skill repurposing that will happen because of the automation that you drive in. So you need to ensure that your staffs are now skilled enough to work in the new digital environment. A lot of these processes which are manual and paper driven need to be automated. For example, underwriting, for example, claims processing. These are areas which we think will see a significant adoption of digital going forward. Excuse me for a minute. We also feel that there's going to be a lot of collaboration with fintechs. We've seen a trend where most of the fintechs who are working with the banks and the NBFIs are also trying to come up with use cases for the insurance industry, and there's going to be a convergence of the fintechs and the insurtech solutions, and we've already seen that, especially around the areas of KYC, customer contactability, data enrichment. And I think going forward, this synergies will come into play, and it's an area to watch out for. It would be immensely helpful if you look at what your peers in the banking or the NBFI industries have adopted, because those industries were a little bit more mature, a little less paper intensive in terms of the products. So you will want to see how the fintechs have operated and helped them, so that you can bring the adoption here, because it is getting support from the regulator as well across the globe. The second pillar is around the virtualization of the services. It goes without saying that creating digital assets which are going to be tailored to your customer segment is absolutely important. You cannot have generic solutions or generic products anymore. As you go digital, people will look for specific need-based services or products, and I think that stresses an importance of investing into tools which actually help you bring out the collaboration and help you re-engineer the processes and help you digitize the entire ecosystem that you operate in. The third is establishing a digital platform. We've seen a lot of collaboration happening between industries, and when I say that, we've seen e-commerce interacting a lot with fintechs, e-commerce interacting with banking, insurance, and this collaboration is here to grow, and you will see how companies start to acquire customers on the back of each other. You start originating a customer on your partner's platform and then bring them in, support them with various products on their platform. Likewise, how do you bring other partners onto your platform? This is going to be an important pillar going forward, and an important area as part of your digital adoption. We've seen consumers actually showing a huge appetite for omni-channel experience. They want to come on one particular channel and ensure all their needs are met there. Even if they drop from that channel to another channel, the experience they want it to be the same. So there's going to be a major push towards establishing a digital platform, and how do you adopt technology there. Even if your legacy systems stay the same, you could essentially carve out a digital platform which is allowing you to onboard your customers there and also service your customers' needs at that level itself without having to touch the or make changes into the legacy system. Uh, Goes without saying, you're going to have to leverage a new and emerging tech. There is going to be with the digital adoption a spike in your transactions on the digital channels. There's also going to be a lot of variability that's going to come. There is a lot of security and maintenance that will come along with it, and it only makes more sense to adopt cloud-based models for operational resiliency, shift towards more of an agile business model backed with artificial intelligence, machine learning platforms, and see how you could use automated tools and workflows to ensure that the manual interventions are minimized and most of the customer servicing can happen on these new platforms by leveraging the new technologies. The last, as I said, is going to be about how do you thrive once the crisis sort of settles down. As I said, we expect that there's going to be a major consolidation that we believe is going to happen into 8 to 9 months from now, and that's going to be on account of companies going through a lot of transition themselves. And in that sort of scenario, there will be some important uh, pillars that insurance companies will have to look at. And in our interaction with most of the business or the IT heads of insurance companies, we've analyzed that your enterprise will have to be far more connected and will have to be far more analytical in terms of how you acquire and how you service your customers and how you manage your workforce. Ecosystem partnerships are going to be a major play, and as part of your adoption, I think you should prepare to set that up, because that's what will help you thrive on the other side of the crisis. You will have to work with your ecosystem players to to ensure that business continuity and business growth are sustained. The adoption of analytics in both sales and services is going to be immense. There are going to be a lot of new data points that are available which may not be within your organization, and again, the partnerships that you make and the collaboration that you have with your ecosystem is going to play a major role in helping you get access and insights out of the data, which again helps you improve your product offerings and also your customer service. The overall experience will also go through a shift. Many organizations are going towards digital, and that means customers will have more demand towards a richer experience, more personalized conversations or discussions, and you would also have to empower your field force to ensure that they are able to service their customers then and there on the spot. This three areas will ensure that the customer experience and the customer service is again top notch, which will help you differentiate in the market. You will have to have relevant offering, personalized services, and valued services that come along with your partnerships. You will have to keep innovating continuously on how you build products that are for a specific need for a customer, and how do you have tools and data points that enable your agents to take decisions that are helping them serve the customer better. This, I believe, will be a framework that insurance companies will adopt going beyond the crisis. So the sustain, adopt, and thrive is how we set a framework. Just to summarize what I've been talking about so far, we believe that the future ready insurance business post the crisis will have broadly these pillars, and these are going to be the focus areas for CIOs, CEOs, and CISOs. Contactless sales, as I said, you're not going to see your customers physically very soon. Agency upskilling, you need to repurpose and align your agency staff to support you do the digital sale and servicing. You have to have a right product mix, and you will have to continuously innovate on the products so that they meet your customer requirements. You'll have to use a lot of AI and ML to bring in efficiencies and bring in digital process adoption in the entire journey for customer onboarding and servicing. You'll have to automate a lot of processes which help you bring operational efficiencies and save cost and help you sustain in the long run. Remote working is going to be a norm. A lot of your office functions could be moved to remote working. Micro insurance, again, we feel that there's going to be a huge stress on the insurance sector, especially in developing countries, because the COVID-19 situation has only exposed the fact that insurance companies are still not well penetrated into the rural market, and that's going to be the next big wave of market that you need to be ready for, and digital adoption will play a key role there. And ensuring that customer service is more digital, so that your dependence on call center setups minimizes and your operational costs come down. At the end, I would again like to reiterate, cybersecurity is going to be a major concern, and that's where your IT partners or service providers such as Newgen, who have the end-to-end solution which is developed and tested for scale and for security, will come into play. And I think Shantanu will talk a little bit more about it. But I'd like to stop here and hand it over. And over to you.
Thanks, Sushil. That was a quite an insightful session. So I'll pass it on to Shantanu now.
Yes, so thank you, Sushil. I think that was really a very insightful talk on of the challenges that the insurance industry is currently facing, and probably the way forward for them in terms of agility and adaptability. I think that is going to be something which is the key going forward in terms of how insurance companies respond to the challenge that are there, and that will probably even amplify in the coming days. So with this, I'll basically take this discussion forward in terms of how Newgen as systems or as an IT solution provider can help achieve a lot of these objectives in the short run as well as in the long term for insurance organizations. So as Sushil rightly mentioned, the focus would definitely shift a lot more to being digital, being connected, being able to quickly adapt to new compliances, to new market needs. And that is where it would not just be the processes that needs to be flexible and agile. It would even need to be the backbone of any insurance companies, which are the IT systems, which needs to be really adaptable and flexible, to actually bring about the changes in them very fast, and bring in this entire flavor of a digital customer experience going forward. Obviously, again, as rightly mentioned by Sushil, probably the in-person interactions are going to be very minimal, at least in the near future. And that is where a lot of selling, especially in the life insurance space, which still involves a lot of personal interaction between the sales agents and the customer, needs to minimize, and there needs to be ICT tools supporting mechanisms wherein the interaction can be digital, and then it can be much more quicker than what it was earlier to be. And for that to happen, organizations needs to have agile layers on top of their legacy systems through which it can actually be achieved. Because one of the major challenges that most of the insurance companies would be facing, not just in India but across the globe, is a lot of the existing legacy applications are not designed with the objective of being agile and being adaptable. And that is where companies need to look at new technologies which would work in sync with these legacy applications, but at the same time provides this much needed agility that is the need of the hour. So, this is what something which we are going to cover in the subsequent slides. I just wrote it as part of a brief agenda, wherein we are just taking an example or one of the scenarios which typically would be required in the days to come. What are the challenges and what are the impact that it poses? How a platform like a low-code platform, actually can help overcome such challenges and the benefits associated with it, and eventually then coming on to what is Newgen actually offering as part of its solution on top of this platform for insurance companies. And then we'll talk about a few case studies as well, where organizations have adopted such technologies and have achieved benefits out of it. So, we would basically try to understand the scenario with a small example. Obviously, this is just one of the scenarios. There can be multiple of such scenarios which might be relevant for insurance companies in the current times. So, what we have taken an example is the example for new product launch, which we are assuming that with the changing compliance needs, with the changing risk needs, organization companies may try to or would definitely want to relook at the product mix that they have, and they would want to launch new products or maybe even change the configurations of their existing products going forward. So typically, if we have to look at how such an activity happens inside any insurance company, we've just tried to elaborate it with an example. So let's assume there is a requirement of a new product rollout that needs to happen. So obviously, you'll have a lot of different teams who come together, who huddle together, and they sort of define the role and responsibilities of each of these companies when it comes to the things required for a new product launch. And once there is an agreement from all these business units, they reach out to the IT team, they initiate a request. IT team, obviously, because of the backlog, would have the option to prioritize these requests depending upon the criticality, and then they will analyze the scope and feasibility, because we still are assuming the fact that a lot of these changes needs to be done on legacy platforms, which may not be very agile to make these changes in a short period of time. And that is where it follows the typical software development life cycle, wherein the IT team then requests back for business requirements document from from the various business teams. The business teams then based on the actions which are required, or based on the activities that are required to be done, for a product launch create their own different business requirement documents, in terms of product teams defining the benefits, the underwriting team defining the criteria and compliances, the sales team, defining the agency access controls, the marketing team defining the various templates, the letters, the contracts that needs to be, generated as part of the new product. And then, they come out with all these requirements back to the IT team, who then actually codes and builds these requirements in the system. Obviously this again takes a substantial amount of time. And once the coding activity is done, eventually it is released to UAT, which is the user acceptance testing, and then it all again follows iterative testing scenarios. And when eventually once it is approved, it then moves to staging, wherein the IT teams estimates the downtime, migrates the code. So there's a lot of activities that eventually needs to be done when it is required to launch a product. Now this entire cycle may take as long as 30 to 40 business days, depending upon how complex is the product and how well developed is the coding in the legacy system. Now this becomes, this would have been okay in a conventional scenario, but then with the changing market scenario, this is something which would lead to the loss of competitive edge to any insurance companies, because someone else may go ahead and launch a product with similar or features in a much shorter span of time, which eventually results in a loss of market for insurance companies. So just to highlight certain challenges which is normally associated with such an approach. Obviously, development time or time taken to bring the products to the market is very high, and that is something which may not be acceptable given the current scenarios or given the current challenges, wherein the organization needs to be much more agile. Technological relevance, obviously, the more changes or the more complex changes that you try to bring inside a system which is of legacy nature requires you to also get people who are experts in those legacy technologies, which becomes a problem in the current time. You don't actually get a lot of people who are experts in working on mainframe technologies or legacy platforms like AS400, which then obviously delays or further extends the time frame. The IT and vendor dependency, this is again huge, because you'll have to reach back to your IT, because a lot of inherent code in these applications is something which is managed by your IT vendors. So they basically would have to give you back the estimates. There would be a cost factor involved, and there would be a time factor involved, which again creates a challenge. And eventually the IT governance, which is again a very critical aspect when it comes to the problem of shadow IT, which is where um, because of lack of such applications, typically business users tends to use a lot of non-sanctioned IT applications to solve their business problems, which eventually leads to a lot of problems when it comes to regulations and IT security. So these probably are some of the challenges which typically would be associated with such a conventional approach. So then probably what may be the solution going forward. So one of the things that actually can help insurance companies overcome this entire challenge is to adapt technologies which are low code. So basically when we say low code, it is the ability for the solution to be developed quickly without the need of a lot of actual lines of code to be written, without a need to be tested as comprehensively as a conventional software development cycle requires. And eventually that actually helps the time to reduces the time that is required to go to market. It obviously creates a lot of omni-channel customer experience, because all these agile and low-code platforms, what it actually helps you is to create a lot of process uniformity. So irrespective of how or through which channel the customer connects to the insurance companies, the overall experience that he gets is very uniform, and that is where it actually helps. And the last but the very important piece here is the closed loop automation. Probably you may do a lot of backend automation. You can bring in a lot of code level changes inside your legacy application, but then that does not help you to transform your processes. The transformation actually happens when the entire process cycle is automated, which even includes the ability to digitally extend the solutions to your partners, to your agents, to anyone who is external to the organization. So once this digital layer is seamlessly connected, not just internally, but even with all these external stakeholders, that basically helps you reduce a lot of your processing time and actually brings in efficiencies, which we have all been talking about. That is something which obviously is the need of the hour. So how it eventually would look like, with the advent of technologies like a low code platform, just taking back the same scenario wherein we have experienced multiple activities which were done across teams, and which actually resulted in a time frame of what we put it as 6 to 7 months, or 30 to 40 days, for the product to go live. Now, this is something which is going to change with the adoption of a low code platform. So assuming the same scenario wherein a product rollout needs to happen, the management team decides on what has to be done. The business users can identify the requirements, or the changes that needs to be brought about in the existing product mix, and then they can nominate people who have been trained on the platform to configure those changes directly themselves. Or even if they send it back to the IT team, the IT team who is trained on working in a configurable low code platform does not require to go through the conventional software development cycle route. In fact, they can go ahead and make the changes directly inside the system with minimal amount of time. In fact, a low code platform like Newgen even allows the users to generate the specification documents from the platform itself. So unlike the conventional method where the documents are prepared outside and then based on the documents the system changes are done, here you can configure the system changes directly inside the system and even generate the specification document from the system, so which actually helps you reduce the overall cycle time, in terms of making those changes inside the system. And obviously, once these configuration changes are done as part of a general compliance, you want it to pass through approval cycle wherein the approvers can log on to the system, they can see the changes with a complete audit, and they can go ahead and give the approval. So which basically, without requiring any major downtime, can start reflecting in your production environment in absolutely no time. So this is something which actually results in cutting down a lot of your time in making these changes, or taking these changes to the market. So, probably it can be even as low as 5 to 7 business days for something which is not very complex. So that is where the organizations need to look at technologies like a low code platform for which they can actually get a lot of this agility, which it would be required, in the times to come going forward. So eventually, if you look at it, what has actually this low-code platform brought in for any insurance company? So obviously, one of the major factors is the collaboration, wherein now organizations need not invest, or probably uh, develop a lot of various siloed point applications which are not seamlessly talking to each other, which are legacy, which are difficult to maintain, through because of the data exchange issues. There are issues with regards to data sanity, data uniformity. That's something which goes away because this low code platform is something wherein it is enabling the organizations to develop all these applications on one single, which is seamlessly connected, integrated, and which actually helps the organization, to bring about the changes much faster. So, just to list down certain low code benefits of the low code platform, obviously, as I was mentioning, you need not have a lot of disconnected point applications. Rather, it can all be built on one single configurable layer, which gives you not just the uniformity, but also, results in data consistency across applications and functions. Ease of orchestration, yes, unlike conventional mechanisms wherein a lot of effort and time was going in, and a workload was going in to bring about those changes going forward, it is reduced significantly because, as I mentioned, business teams can direct start taking ownership of a lot of changes for which they were conventionally relying on the IT team. Even for something as low as making a small logic change, it was always required to go back to the IT team, wherein which would have required the cycle to be executed and taken a lot of time. Now this is something wherein the business teams themselves owns a lot of configuration modules through which they can actually make changes inside the system in no time. Single platform, so obviously you have one single platform which is managed internally by the organization, so there is no need to depend on multiple vendors, which actually not just reduces the hassles of bringing in all the different vendors working on various technologies on board on one single consensus for a requirement change. Rather, it would be internally managed, wherein it is just one platform which takes care of all of these things, and it also has a significant reduction in the cost, which again is going to be a major factor going forward in terms of how do cost optimizations happen. And the last but very important is the user experience, not just for the end users or the customers, but also the users who are working on the system. Now, if they need to be much more productive, if they need to be much more efficient, they need to be working on interfaces which are actually much more supportive. They shouldn't be required to toggle between multiple screens. They should get the entire information on one single screen, including the data, the documents, any past history that needs to be viewed at, and that basically helps in them processing the case much faster. And obviously the experience also extends then to the customer, wherein the same platform can also be extended across to external partners, to customers, who also then get a much better user experience while interacting with insurance companies. So this is something which actually is achieved out of Newgen's low code platform. But just to summarize, what is this actual platform, or what does it comprises of? So just to very quickly give you a glimpse of it, obviously the platform is something which is constituting of multiple modular elements. So again, modularity of the platform actually helps you to pick and decide that what is needed for your organization depending upon your IT landscape. So the ability to configure various masters through MDM layers, ability to define and build the UI and the interfaces and the front ends quickly through form builders. Rule configuration, again a very important factor, wherein you can actually adapt it at an enterprise level, wherein you can use this layer to configure rules across functions. Conventionally, we always have been looking at the application of rule engine primarily in underwriting, but then it can even be extended to other functions like to your claims processing, to your policy servicing rules. So this can actually result in an enterprise rule repository layer which manages rules and logics for all your different business functions. Process modeling, again, this is very important, because I think one of the very important aspect is how do you optimize your processes, how do you bring changes in your processes very faster. So that is where the modeling capability in terms of reviewing your processes, in terms of making changes in it, is something which would be required going forward. Integration layer, again a very important aspect, because eventually this low code platform is helping you create a unified interface which needs to talk to your legacy application, and that is where the capability to interact with or integrate quickly with multiple applications becomes a key success point of such applications. Content management, obviously you need to digitize and manage the content at one place, and this content should be readily available at the time of transaction processing. I think that is something which is very important. Social adapters, yes, going forward a lot of focus would be on digital, wherein people may want to connect with you through a lot of virtual platforms like the social media platforms, and that is where the ability of the platforms to connect seamlessly with your social adopters in terms of identifying probable leads, or let's say proactively taking care of any grievance that might be floating around on a social media platform, basically connecting seamlessly or efficiently back to your customers across channels, be it WhatsApp, be it email, be it Facebook. So I think that is something which is very critical. Customer communication management, yes, all your outbound communication needs to be streamlined, needs to be centralized, and then this is not just limited to any sort of an intimation that it is going out, but even in terms of the documents that are getting generated. So they need to be standardized, they need to be maintained at one place. And again, with a lot of agility, what is also required is the ability to make changes in these communications and these documents in a much faster way, and that is something which can actually be achieved with the component like the customer communication management or an output management product. User management, ability to grant accesses, controls, quickly to the users again becomes very critical. Mobility again, a very important aspect. There are some organizations which have adopted it to a high extent, but then there are some organizations which are still lagging, and that is something which is going to give a lot of digitization for insurance companies going forward. So this can be one of the means wherein the customer and the agent can digitally connect, to do a lot of digital interaction, which was earlier happening, a lot physically. Reporting requirements, obviously you need to have a lot of visibility, a lot of controls in terms of how your business is actually working upon is something which is again important. RPA and analytics, again, yes, the platform needs to be agile enough, or needs to be adaptable enough to to have robotic capabilities and also analytical capability, which again is going to be a very important factor, because now that the rules and logics are being built inside the system, it still requires a manual intervention to manage those rules. But then going forward, organizations may try to look at self-learning capabilities, wherein based on the past data, the system should be self-evolving, self-learning. There shouldn't be the requirement to manage or develop rules manually, something which is again going to be very important from the context of platforms which require minimal manual intervention to maintain and change. So coming forward to what would be the applications of the low-code platform for insurance industry, it would be widespread. It would include your core processes, which are your primary lines of businesses, which is centered around things like quotation management, customer onboarding, underwriting, claims management, distribution management. Again, a very critical piece going forward, because that is something which is going to be very critical when it comes to digitizing a lot of your onboarding activities through a low-code solution layer, and eventually policy servicing. But then the application of a low-code platform is not just limited to these core processes. Once you have a platform in place, and once you have sort of optimized all your core processes, you can even extend this across to a lot of your horizontal as well as supporting processes. So processes which are still manual, but then obviously they are low in the radar of any insurance companies, because they are not deemed to be critical. But here the advantage that you get is, once you have a platform of such nature, you need not invest separately on a lot of these, not just your primary function areas, but a lot of your supporting and secondary function areas as well. I mean, everything can all be sort of unified and centralized on one layer. So processes like your HR processes, like your finance processes, like your IT service desk processes, they can all be sort of consolidated and developed on one single layer. Similarly, your supporting processes like your file and wording, records management, those are all something which going forward can all be streamlined on just on the Newgen low-code platform. So obviously, one of the important aspect is having a platform in place, or offering a platform to any organization. But what is also very critical is the ability to adopt these technologies by the insurance company, and that may happen only when it is not just the platform which is offered, but it is also pre-built solutions or template solutions on top of it. So obviously that is something which actually enables the organization not to start from ground zero. They start from a level wherein there is already a solution in place, and obviously that can be then adapted and make aligned as per the business requirements of a specific insurance companies much faster, because of the fact that this entire pre-built solution is on top of a low-code platform. So unlike conventional point applications, which even if they are matching, let's say 70 or 80% of the business requirements, to fill the delta of 20% take a humongous amount of time, which eventually then just pays the purpose of having a pre-built application in place. So this is something which is overcome as a challenge here. Is even if, let's assume, the pre-built solution matches only to 50 or 60% of your requirements, but then you can quickly fill in the delta of the 30-40% in much lesser time, because filling the delta does not require a lot of codings to be done. It can all be achieved primarily through configurations and changes. So but again, coming to the fact that there need to be solutions in place so that organizations can start looking at it and can take them to the market much faster. So for that, what Newgen also offers on top of its low code platform is what we call it as solution accelerators, which are pre-built solution or template solutions available based on our experience of automating such applications for various insurance companies across the globe. So, it can be both in the individual insurance line, it can be in the group insurance. There's something on agency and distribution management. And another important piece is the service management, which again is very critical. So things like point of sale automation, which is again linking back to your distribution automation or your digital customer onboarding, streamlining of your entire new business journey, claims management. And group again is one of the most neglected business areas for any insurance companies. Wherein a lot of manual intervention, a lot of manual processes still happen. So that is something for which Newgen has done significant amount of work in a lot of insurance companies, and that is taken as a base when we go to any of our solutions or for any of our prospective customers. So, just to, bring in the end certain examples or certain simple implementations or case studies of the work that we have done of similar nature or that we are currently doing, just highlighted a few case studies. So, one of the case studies in India that we are doing currently, Max Life Insurance, wherein, we are actually automating the entire new business and underwriting solution for them on this low code platform. Obviously, they already had a solution in place for this, but then it was again coming out from the fact that that solution was not much configurable. There was a huge vendor dependency. It was a huge cost required to maintain that application, and that is where the Newgen solution was evaluated, and it was decided to be gone ahead with, wherein the entire customer onboarding, underwriting, not just the front end, even the rules and logics are being developed on the Newgen platform, which actually gives them a lot of flexibility in terms of making the changes much faster. Now, again, an important aspect is, configurability is one of the points, but then again, scalability is a major factor because, while these tanks are actually throwing up a lot of challenges, but then they're also throwing up a lot of opportunities. There's actually a lot of focus, especially in people in India, to get insured because a lot of our population is still underinsured, and that is where eventually you'll see a lot of push or a lot of volume growth going forward. And for that to happen, you need to have systems in place which are scalable, which can actually work in high load scenario, and that is something that we have already proven ourselves in LIC, which obviously happens to be one of the biggest insurance company, not just in India but even worldwide. So that is something that we can boast of, that we have been able to take the transactional load of someone like life insurance corporation, which itself speaks a volume of the fact that the solution is highly scalable and it can always cater to high loads. Again, further extending to the fact that a similar implementation that we are currently doing for AXA in the Asia Pacific region, which is again, transforming the entire health end-to-end health insurance package. So here what we are doing is, we are basically, replacing their legacy health administration system, and in fact, we are developing an entire end-to-end administration system on the Newgen BPM or the Newgen layer itself, which is basically helping them bring in the element of configurability, bring in the element of agility in their functions going forward. So all their business functions with regards to their health line of business are now being transformed into the Newgen layer from the legacy layer, and that is something which would eventually change the business working of the way they were working earlier. Another example of a similar work that we have done in the life insurance space is down south in Sri Lanka, wherein one of the leading insurance companies of Sri Lanka, Janshakti Insurance, is actually being using us for decoupling their legacy policy administration system, wherein the entire end-to-end application level requirements have been brought to the Newgen Agile layer, and the code has just been, or the legacy policy administration system has just been pushed to the back as a data store and the entire transaction processing, the user interfacing happens on the Newgen layer, which is actually giving them a lot of benefits in terms of the way they were processing earlier to the way they were doing it now, which is actually bringing in productivity benefits, stat benefits, increased customer base for them. So with this, just I have a couple of slides basically to talk about, or just to give you a glimpse of Newgen, who we are. So obviously we have been into the market for pretty long now. We have been almost 30-year-old or 28-year-old organization. We have a global presence. We have customer base in India. Obviously, we are present significantly in India, but then it's not just India. We are also now expanded significantly in across the globe. So even in insurance, we have a lot of presence in India, and outside India, there are a good amount of customers that we have across territories. We obviously are working in multiple verticals, but banking and insurance are the ones which are the key verticals for us. And being a product company, there's a lot of focus on product innovation, and that is where the platform is keep on getting enhancing and further improving with the configuration, or with the extension of a lot of new and technologies into this framework. So we have brought in technologies like digital sensing, blockchain, RPM and RPA, intelligent content services, analytics. All these things are actually helping us to make the platform future ready. We are also adapting with the times we are bringing in. So our purpose is, the customers who are with us or who would be with us would be secure, not just for the current time, but also for the times coming forward. So yeah, so with this, I think I'll wind up my presentations. I'll make the session open for any questions now.
Thanks, Shantanu. The way you summed up with the examples, it was quite good. So here are the questions. The first question which I received is for Sushil. What patterns have you observed in terms of claims in India region after the COVID-19 crisis?
See, I think it's a very interesting question, and just to give you a sense, we've seen sort of a mixed bag. There has been, an anticipation that there will be a spike in claims around the life insurance part. There will be impact on the lines that cater to trade, income protection, also any sort of event related insurances. But having said that, there is also a lot of reduction in claims, especially for the motor a third party. We've not seen any spike there. In fact, the insurance companies that we've been discussing with are repurposing their claims processing teams for other tasks that can help them cater to their customer service. So it's been a mixed bag depending on the product line, to be honest.
Okay, and the following question is also a bit related. That is, what do you think is the preparedness level of the small and medium enterprises for crisis like this?
I think clearly what we've seen is that the preparedness from a perspective of responding to the crisis was not optimal. We've seen a lot of small and medium enterprises struggling to stay in business, and I think there is a lot of push from the government in terms of extending loans and the moratorium as well. And as we stand, we are actually working back with the other financial institutions to see how we could help and engage with the Ministry of Finance to support the MSMEs in times like this. Clearly, there was a lack of preparedness in terms of responding to the crisis. But again, this was an unprecedented of a sort, once in a 100-year phenomena. So yes, there's obviously a lot that I think will have to happen over the course of next 6 to 8 months.
Thanks, Sushil. The next question is for Shantanu. Uh, how will the solution take care of regulations and regulatory process?
Yes. So yes, obviously, with the current situations, there would be a lot of compliances with regards to even regulations coming in from a regulator, wherein organizations would need to adapt or make changes in the way of working. They need to, bring in those regulations at the same time without causing any business disruption. And I think that is where a platform like this actually helps organizations because, can actually look at it, analyze, bring those regulatory level changes in the solutions much faster without the need of actually disrupting their business. And I think that would give them the capability to comply to all the regulatory changes that are going to come and that are coming, but at the same time being business effective.
Okay, and the last question is, what do you think is the USP of solution by Newgen?
So I think the USP, so they are um, one of the very important factors, which again I would like to highlight, is what we are trying to bring to any insurance company here is not just a platform. So unlike most of our peers who have a platform or who have a point application, what we are trying to bring to you is the best of both worlds. What we are saying is it's a platform and not a point application, and hence it is much more configurable, it is much more agile, and at the same time it is also not a pure platform. It's a solution which is on a platform, so it is actually bringing the best of both worlds, which is giving the platform capabilities and at the same time giving a pre-built solution capabilities as well.
Great. So thanks, Sushil. Thanks, Shantanu, for your valuable insights on this topic. Thank you to the entire audience for your valuable time and tremendous response. We shall be sending across the presentation and the transcript for all your questions. Good day, goodbye, and have a great day.
Thank you, Ruchika.
Thanks, Ruchika.